My name is Will Judy, and I wear a lot of secular hats in Houston and in Texas. We advocate for church-state separation at the local and the state level, and I love what you all do. You're all so absolutely awesome. Irreverent, succinct, practical. It's like 6 to 9 minutes of awesomeness. And you say bad words, like I say it, I hear it on I listen to it on my commute to work. It's perfect. We're going to survive this. Things are going to be tough, but it won't be the worst case scenario. We have good organization, again, at the local level. There's a good grassroots movement. There's a lot of coalition partners out there. So I am still optimistic. We will survive this.
It's Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Congressional Democrats, including electeds from Texas and Washington, D.C., have been sounding the alarm about Elon Musk and his Doge crew attempting to take a digital wrecking ball to the very heart of our federal government. The Guardian reports that those lawmakers were amidst hundreds of protesters who rallied yesterday outside the Department of the Treasury to denounce what they call Musk's hostile takeover of federal financial systems. These demonstrations ended up taking over the entire street outside the building. Dallas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was prominent in the moment, announcing across the scene, quote, "We are not going to sit around while you go and desecrate our Constitution. We are going to be in your face and on your asses," unquote. Crockett had just tried and failed to enter the Treasury Department building along with congressional colleagues Ayanna Pressley, Maxwell Frost, and Jamie Raskin. They were rebuffed at the door. Representative Crockett, who sits on the House Oversight Panel, is cited by Philippe Timotia at the Hill as well. In a CNN interview, she elaborates on how many of us are feeling about the Trump administration granting the eminently unelected Musk and his crew of young hackers access to the most intimate details of American taxpayers, including access to their federal benefits. Crockett says, quote, "Right now we have an administration that could care less about what the courts say that they can do. They could care less about what the law says. They could care less about the Constitution. And so I think that we have to understand that we are not dealing with normal people. We are dealing with someone who has proven to be a criminal, proven to be disrespectful to us as Americans. We have to fight him the exact same way. We have to come back with the same type of energy, which means that if you want to play ball, then I'm ready to play ball," unquote, and yes, ma'am. On the other side of the aisle in D.C., another Texas elected was laying bare the outright racist hostility that's become a hallmark of the modern Republican Party. Also from the Hill and writer Philippe Timotia, freshman Representative Brandon Gill of Congressional District 26 in Texas, North DFW, reacted to comments by the much more experienced Congresswoman Ilhan Omar in which she encouraged immigrants to understand and exercise their rights should they be confronted by ICE officers, by calling for Rep. Omar to be deported. Writing on Twitter, of course, Congressman Gill says, quote, "America would be a better place if Ilhan Omar were deported back to Somalia. We should have never let Ilhan Omar into our country," unquote. A spokesperson from Gill's office later elaborated, quote, "Representative Omar's conduct raises questions about to whom she is most loyal, the American people or illegal aliens. It is disgraceful for a sitting congresswoman and U.S. citizen to facilitate the invasion of our country," unquote. Congresswoman Omar came to the U.S. as a refugee from Somalia at the age of 12 in 1995 and became a naturalized citizen 5 years later at 17 in the year 2000, 100% legally. Elon Musk has tried to pile on here as well, accusing Omar of somehow breaking the law with her advice to her constituents to understand the law and their rights. She says of Musk, quote, "It just shows you how much he lacks an understanding of what the laws of the country are," unquote. We're at a moment where racist, bigoted, xenophobic hate has achieved much greater momentum for American conservatives than any actual understanding of or respect for the law. We've been waiting for some kind of clarity on Operation Lone Star, Governor Abbott's extremely expensive and largely ineffective war game session at the Texas border that soaked up over $11 billion and counting of your tax dollars over the last few years. Alejandro Serrano and Jasper Shearer at the Texas Tribune say what's becoming clear is that the talk we heard from Texas Republicans early on about trimming some of that budget now that Trump's cavalry has arrived, as we expected, frankly, was just empty talk. Expect the current ledge to sink at least another $6 billion into Abbott's border theater, establishing what appears to be an all but permanent state military apparatus across our borderlands. New Trump Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is seen as a fun new character in the drama. He visited El Paso for the first time in his new position yesterday. Not in Texas, but right next door over in New Orleans, crews are busily preparing for the Super Bowl on Sunday. Kaya Guilfoyle at NBC News says some of those crew members are making special preparations for the presence of Donald Trump at the game by removing the words "end racism" from the end zones of the football field at Caesars Superdome. Clearly an idea that the dear leader might find objectionable. "End racism" is being replaced by "choose love," another of several slogans the NFL slings around in their longstanding Inspire Change program, itself seeming perhaps a bit empty now as the league accommodates a man who has used American racism to propel himself to the most powerful position in the world twice now. Just as Progress Texas highlights Ground Game Texas, the advocacy and action org best known for their marijuana decriminalization efforts across the state, and more lately, moving into the areas of reproductive justice and voting rights via a recent happy hour podcast on this feed, a new poll on pot pops up. Corey McCord at KHOU-TV in Houston says this survey was conducted by the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston last month, and it finds broad support for relaxing prohibitions on cannabis and THC products in Texas, just as Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is strangely cracking down as hard as he ever has. Survey says only 22% of Texans want current marijuana laws to remain in place. 69% support decriminalizing the possession of marijuana for personal use. 71% of Democrats support recreational legalization, and over half of Republicans in Texas do too. On medical marijuana, 86% of Democrats and 75% of Republicans say yes. Back to Texas transplant Elon Musk for a moment and his Grok AI that lives over on X. Musk, for all his money and cunning, really needs help in the branding department. Anyway, Chris Morris in Fortune writes that Grok apparently has a dim view of its own creator. Musk's AI says he's not a good person. When asked for an opinion of him by users, churning out a laundry list of reasons from Musk's spreading of misinformation to his labor practices at Tesla and SpaceX. In the first instance in which I have quoted an AI on this podcast, Grok says of the culture at Tesla, quote, "There have been reports and lawsuits about working conditions at Tesla factories, including allegations of racism, unsafe working conditions, and unrealistic production demands, leading to high employee turnover and stress," unquote. Grok also notes specific malfeasance at SpaceX, including its opportunistic environmental practices that have led to an uptick in orbital space pollution. And finally, those protests today organized at state capitals in all 50 states against Project 2025 and Trump's policies in general in just these first few weeks of his return to office. I'm not your mama, but I'll say one more time, authorities will be watching these protests closely and would love nothing more than an excuse to take them down. Keep things peaceful and lawful, be fully aware of your surroundings, and exercise top-notch judgment on whether or not things are safe. If you're joining a protest today, be super smart about it. Our funding at Progress Texas is rarely sufficient for us to plan much more than a quarter or two ahead, but the conservative disinformation machine we oppose has no such obstacle. They're funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups. Our regular everyday listeners form a key component of our funding here at Progress Texas. If that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor. No amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to David Sauer, Laura Wildenthal, and Doug Beaton, all of whom are on the team. We appreciate all of y'all. For our Austin listeners in particular, but really to all of you, the Amplify Austin Day season is officially underway. This year's early giving period has started. Look up Progress Texas at amplifyatx.org or see the direct link in the show notes. The official I Live Here, I Give Here Amplify Austin Day is coming up in early March. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.